In the previous video, I spoke to you about leaves and we discussed the page on page 29 of the book that was about observational drawing of leaves, and they were drawn in using different perspective and curves and twists and things like that. Now in this video I'm looking at the image below it, which is about drawing flowers and how it's easier to construct a drawing of a flower if you measure and use the geometric shapes that are found within it. And that goes for whether you're drawing a face-on flower or a flower in perspective. But also related is the type of flower shape that it is too. And so you can see different types of flower and different perspectives. So front-facing flowers, we've got a few different ones here. And flowers using perspective, so tilted at different angles and positions. I'm looking for key points and shapes within the flowers, depending on how many petals they have and what shape they are. You know, so we have flowers that have 4 petals, 3 petals, 5 petals that are bilaterally symmetrical, or flowers that are radially symmetrical. So a radially symmetrical flower, like a daisy, it's like this. You can chop it up almost like a clock face, and each of those sections will be broadly the same. Whereas a bilateral flower, which an example is a pea flower, you can only cut it in one line of symmetry where there's 2 halves to it. Chopping them down the middle. Foxglove is bilaterally symmetrical, as is a viola. You can only cut it into 2 halves, like so. So looking at the disc-shaped flower, one of the larger ones I've got here, it's circular, broadly, obviously fits within a circle. But in order to draw it, I would measure, as I did with the leaves, holding the dividers, remember, on the same plane for the height and the width, and the height and the width will be broadly the same because it's circular. So you can plot in a square for any circular flower, and it's a flower with 4 petals, but it's broadly a circle, as is this one. You can plot in a height and a width. You can also plot in a height and a width if the flower is in perspective. So looking at the daisy-like flower here too, the height and the width, divide the square up that you make into 4 sections horizontally and vertically, and then you can slice it up like a cake, like I said, diagonally into this sort of shape here. But at an angle, when you measure the height and then you rotate the flower away, you'll see the height changes, but the width stays the same. It doesn't really make much difference on the width there. Obviously if it's further away it's narrower, but if it's the same positioning, when you rotate it away, the width will be broadly the same, but the height will change. So you can see that height getting shorter and shorter there, and then you can measure that actual height with your dividers and mark it on the paper, and the width, so height, width, and then mark in an oval within it to fit everything in. Also mark in the centre line and where the stem originates from into the middle of the flower. From there you can measure the height of the disc, the height of the outer ray florets or petal-like structures at the back. Obviously they vary, but go for a key point, and the same at the front. And then you can work your way around it like a clock face, plotting in particular petal-like structures. So I've drawn that disc in the centre, I've done the outer disc, and then I've kind of almost marked it like a clock, having found the centre, and start to measure the individual petal-like structures with their heights and widths, working around it like a clock face, even though it's at an angle. So like this. So the approach is the same regardless of the flower type. So if we take a campanula flower, this is a different one, that's Scottish bluebell, but this one here is a different type of campanula, but the structure's the same. Petals are fused down to this point here, and then separates into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the same. So the way to construct that is the same, really. It's the height and width of the widest point, but then you can measure different points along it. So I put in that center line from the reproductive parts to the stem. So I've got the stem there and the center there. And then I've measured the maximum width here and the maximum height of the actual opening in the flower. So I can construct an oval here for the base, the widest part. Then I construct a second oval where it narrows in and where those petals split. So I've got a second oval there. I've also got a third one here at the top of the flower. Just turn it around that way. So I've got this one, I've got one here and one there. Third one measuring the width then. So I'll measure all of these sizes with my dividers, and that gives me a shape to work with that I can start to build the actual flower on. So I've got my center line, I've got my 3 ovals all aligned, and then I can start to see where the individual split in the petals are and mark them around the flower, and then just draw them in. And you can see that I've done it here in different places and done several versions of the same flower. It's the same with, it's like a cup shape. So it's more of a disc than this. It's not such a bell shape, and it's up facing, but it's the same. There's an outer oval here, and there's one inside and one at the base there. And then I position where each of the petals is by looking at the angles. So constructing it again using geometric shapes. Petunia type flower here. And again, height and width of that top part measured, plotted in, height, width, center line down to this part here, measuring the width here, 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 using these ovals, constructing it using a series of ovals, and then filling in the parts between it. So there are actually 5 divisions, again, in petals, in a fused tube, flower tube, if you like, and they're drawn in last. Again, constructing from that shape makes it easier. I've got a lily, a small lily here. They have 3 inner and 3 outer tepals, and I've marked the points where they are by measuring. It's one big, slightly off center, so it's a slight oval, almost round but not quite. If it was round, I'd be looking at it face on, but if it's slightly away, it's oval. It is wider than it is in height, and just plotting those points around. The bilateral flower, a center line, height and width, and it's actually quite easy to construct, measuring all of the parts with heights and widths all over. So that's how you construct a drawing of a flower. Just using those shapes and measurements will make it very easy than trying to freehand a drawing. It's very difficult to get a freehand drawing right, particularly if you don't have a lot of experience with drawing. So you can go ahead and make yourself a nice sketchbook page using a range of different flowers, playing around with them, positioning them on the page, looking at the space in between them to get an attractive kind of page, and just constructing a drawing of those flowers like this. But try and consider things when you do place them like this. Diagonal lines are not so good, so looking for positioning of the flowers that is not quite too straight or sitting in parallel lines. And just playing around with them until you get a good kind of arrangement of flowers on the page. And that's a very good exercise to practice your drawing skills. Now, moving ahead to the next page in this observational drawing section, there's a page on portraits, which we've kind of talked about, but there's also a page on perspective and foreshortening here. And I've spoken about drawing angles of flowers, different flowers, angles of leaves and flowers, and how you build up from these individual parts to constructing larger, more complicated drawings, which I'll deal with later. But I just wanted to show you the drawing related to this page, page 31 and 32. And it's the same idea, but it's just drawing the same flower in different positions. So I would have done exactly the same thing as I've already told you about. I've done a cyclamen here, study, a cyclamen persicum, very common. You can get these florists, cyclamen persicum in all different colours, and they're very easy to get a hold of, not expensive, so you can afford to take all the flowers off them and draw them if you want, or draw them on the plants. So it's the same as I spoke about. We're looking at height and width, marking and centre lines, marking and key points, like where petals narrow, and shapes, geometric shapes, how a big oval there where the petals are hidden behind. And we have one here, the same here, very narrow one there and there, widths. And I've removed a lot of the working lines. You can see here though, I put in those ovals there and there. I had my width and height measurements, a centre line, and where the stem would have gone would have all been plotted in. And so you construct a page there of drawings of a flower in different positions and also at different phases here. So I've put buds in as well. You get a very good understanding of the plant if you want to construct a drawing later on. And the same with the leaves. I also did that with the leaves, just covering that just briefly because this video is not about leaves, but you can see it's the same approach, height and width, and then different angles, all measured using dividers, and all which help you with your understanding of how to draw a plant based on observation, measuring and looking for shapes and angles.